Alrighty. Why did that happen? Take two. Yeah, I completely lost internet. I don't know why or what happened, but we yeah, I don't know. It just said everything was disconnected. I was like, "What?" And then I looked and my router's right here and the light was orange, and that means that it's not working. So I lost internet. I don't know why, and then it came back basically immediately. So anyways, I'll just finish telling the story about my beard disappearing. So I I was trying to shave my sideburns, and then I got too close and I was like, okay, well, I'll get rid of the sideburns, keep the rest. So I started like trimming the rest, but I do have some dead zones, like pretty obvious ones. So I was trimming that, and I just got too aggressive. I trimmed too much of it away, and I thought it just looked really stupid. So I was like, well, should I just keep this and look stupid for a while, or just get rid of all of it and look stupid for an even longer time? And for some reason, I thought option two was better. I don't know. It was Gary. It was Gary. Gary took away my internet. Gary sabotaged me because he's too afraid to debate me. And the only thing he can do to guarantee that he never has to get absolutely wrecked by me is to destroy the internet. So Gary is a terrorist. Go figure. Magnus Carlsen, is that who I look like? I'd have to I'd have to comb my hair back. And I'd have to slap the table. uh, Steve, you're probably right. Rah! As Saddam Hussein wisely said. Yawn. Did we fix it? Yes, we did, Jacer. How do we get to call in? Is it only via TikTok, by the way? Yes, it's odd seeing you without the beard, but it will grow back. I went through recently with my head hair. Uh, yeah, I'm currently only doing. It's only on TikTok. I do try to live stream on YouTube on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I haven't been great about keeping up with that lately, but I will be trying to stream more regularly on Tuesdays and Thursdays on YouTube, and I have the guest box open for most of those. Ron White was the guy who was talking about wheels in the Red Sea. Well, it's Ron Wyatt, but yeah. Greetings from Poland. Really love your content. Thank you, Adam. This account is called Holy Honkers. That's Jesus. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but it's a picture of Jesus, except he's got bosoms. Holy honkers, that's funny. It's literally just a picture of Jesus. Oh man. Can you play those guitars behind you? I can, yeah. I won't be doing that at this moment. Ron White would be funnier. Ron White is hilarious. I keep yawning. Oh, jeez. Oh, why did I spent $10 on these stupid headphones and it was not worth it. Because apparently it doesn't work. Actually, it probably does work. I would just have to, whatever. Wait, you know what? I don't want to have a head dent. Like I said, these things suck, but I mean, they work. I can technically hear. Bro is yawning. I do yawn a lot during these live streams. It's pretty weird. It's not like I don't get enough sleep. No, Adam, like I said, I try to live stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I do a couple of Ask Me Anything sessions. I do 2 of those a month on Mondays. Actually, the next one is this Monday. So be on the lookout. Have the bell notification turned on YouTube, and then you'll be able to catch me. Yawn counter when? We could do it right now. Super chat just giving me a blank box after submitting. I'm anxious. Yeah, nothing. Nothing showed up for me, Cutlery. Like on my end, I don't see anything either. When is the return of April? Oh man, not soon enough. Do you play any video games? Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Arma 3 lately. I'm trying to play a little bit of Space Marine 2 at the moment. Chat, it's over. Bam Bam says I haven't got a clue. It's over. It's over. Where'd the hair go? I mean, I could go get it for you. I'm pretty sure it's still in the bathroom trash. Darth blocked me today. Yeah, he did. PC restart, womp womp. I don't know if I'm gonna do that. I guess just save your money. Yeah, why would a super chat not go through? That is weird. I mean this in the nicest way possible. You're one of the only people who looks older without a beard. I think I look younger. I bet if I cut my hair, I'd look even younger still. What do I think about the protests going on today? Oh yeah, isn't the military parade is today? The No Kings protest. The No Kings protest, that's a good premise. I like that. Yeah, works for me. Well, that's kind of being overshadowed because some psychopath murdered two Democratic lawmakers and tried to murder, murdered a lawmaker and her husband and tried to murder another one. Mr. Key One, that super chat worked. Wait, is the parade today or did they cancel the parade? Wait, when is the military parade? Did it already happen? What? It's not until 6:30 p.m. Eastern time? That's kind of a weird hour. I don't know, whatever. Cutlery Duck, hello. Yep, I see it. Can you name a DNC initiative that I don't support? I can't name a single DNC initiative. I assume they have some absolute horseshit anti-Semitism stuff. That's a complete joke, so I would absolutely be against that. The DNC also, virtually every single thing they do is fake. They say they're in favor of, increasing minimum wage and all this other stuff, but they're completely funded by billionaires too, and so they never do any of that stuff. Medicaid reform, Medicare for all, increasing the minimum wage. Literally nothing they ever say they're going to do will they ever do because they are whores. George knows all about that, I'm sure. What's up?
Yo, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
I just wanted to see, what different evidences you had for the prompts. They're just like going across the top of the screen.
Well, do you disagree with all of them?
I don't know all of them because they're moving, but one of them was creationism. Oh, here we go. Creationism is dumb.
Yep. Evolution is true.
Alternative?
Big Bang is true. No evidence of God. And then I have books. Oh, and Darth Dawkins is terrified of me.
Fair enough.
So, which of those things do you not believe?
So, what creationists? You don't believe that there was a start to the universe, or?
I don't believe that a personal agent started the universe. I especially don't believe it happened 6,000 years ago.
Okay, and then you don't. So you believe in evolution.
Yep.
You don't believe that someone created the universe, but you believe something did?
No, I don't really believe anything created the universe. I have some people in chat that are saying your voice is super quiet, so I don't know if you have a way of like making yourself louder. I can try to be a little more quiet.
No, I'll grab some headphones.
Oh, you know what? I can boost you on my end. That might be why. So I'll boost you. There we go.
Hello.
What's up?
I just put headphones on. Maybe that's made the audio a bit better. I don't know.
Okay, so which thing do you want to talk about?
The Big Bang, I guess.
Okay, what about it?
So if nothing started the universe, then was there always material to cause a Big Bang, or is the universe eternal in that way?
The universe can be eternal. The matter we see around us wouldn't have existed, but the energy in some way, in some kind of form, could exist eternally.
So energy is eternal, but you don't believe in an eternal God.
No, because there's no evidence of magic or anything like that. The scientific law that
I'm not
energy
saying
can't
it's
be created or destroyed uh, is like we have that scientific law because it holds true. There are certain there's certain things that happen when you add up all the energies of the universe. You don't get zero, like they don't cancel out. And some of that I believe has to do with
okay.
the expansion of the universe. So I mean, laws are not absolute. They are like factual observations that we make, but
Yeah,
they're actually not absolute in that sense, or in any sense necessarily. But um, I don't know. I'm just kind of saying words at this point. So
yeah. I think where we would disagree is that I'd say that God created energy and then made it appear through the laws of um, physics and things like that that it cannot be created or destroyed. I think that's the only place we disagree.
yeah, but then I would ask you, why do you think that, or what evidence of that do you have?
Um, I don't have a reason as to why God would do it that way because I'd have to know God's mind. The evidence I have is just through there being creation.
There
I'm not
is
really a
creation.
de debater, yeah, but there is something. So I'd have to know that. I mean, if we didn't exist, then I wouldn't have evidence of it. But everything I see before me, it exists, and I'm aware of it.
Yeah. So in a universe where God doesn't exist, the universe also doesn't exist.
Exactly,
How does that
because
follow?
there'd be nothing to cause. Yeah, there'd be nothing to cause existence to begin with.
Why does existence
There-
need a cause if God doesn't?
Because in the same way, you have faith that everything is eternal, like energy. I have faith that God is eternal
I don't have
through.
faith in that. We have that is in evidence. Well,
But
it being
so you can prove
eternal
it.
isn't exactly. Maybe that's maybe saying that's in evidence isn't necessarily the case. But there's no. We do have. I mean, we know about matter and energy, and we can describe them scientifically, and there are scientific models that can give you uh, an eternal universe. So there's no logical problem with any of this. Uh, to invoke, then there must be something else that can't be known about, that can only be known about through faith. Uh, it- I that's very different.
So what laws are there then that say
Matter and
that
energy
energy
cannot be
or
created or destroyed.
so you believe in an infinite so there was no beginning to time.
There could be a beginning of time as a dimension of space, absolutely. But before that, did the universe exist? Sure.
So there's always been matter and energy in your opinion.
I don't see any logical problem with that.
Interesting.
Hmm. Has God always existed?
I think so
How does that work?
because he's a eternal. That's his nature.
Okay, well uh that's just a tautological statement. You're not telling me how it works, you're just telling me what it is. Like, why is the sky blue? Because it's
You
blue.
did the same thing.
No, I didn't do that. So, do you have
You
an explanation for uh
no, but you said you you just said it is what it is essentially.
when did I say
That's
that? With respect to what?
to energy and matter. You said it's eternal, and I asked you for
That
proof, and you
is
said that
right. So, uh, matter and energy being conserved is in evidence. This isn't an argument. This is evidence. And then there are highly sophisticated mathematical, like physics, I guess we could call them models that describe it. Now you can call theoretical physics, I mean, I wouldn't call it faith. You can say it's not the same thing as empirical evidence, but it's predicated on empirical evidence. And theoretical physics has a long and storied history of us like finding empirics to support it, I would say. So no, I don't think these are equivalent at all. So how does God's eternality work? Eternality, that can't possibly be a word, can it?
Eternalism.
It is a word. Eternality is a word. Huh. It just sounds so stupid. Anyways, how does that work?
No, I just do think they're, equal. If you believe that energy is eternal, what's stopping me from believing God is eternal?
But I know that energy exists. I don't think you or I know that a magical God exists.
Yeah, I think I do know though. So I guess.
How do you know that? In what evidence of that do you have?
I don't know. I feel like it's more concrete evidence than.
Well, then it should be pretty easy to give one example.
Well, I think Jesus is my example. He came and revealed God, and all throughout, different.
Okay, what evidence of that do you have?
Pointed to Jesus. And through his miracles, we got historical evidence of things that aren't physically
What evidence
possible,
do you have that the miracles happened?
Quote unquote magic, historical evidence, documentation, eyewitness accounts.
Chat, is it?
I don't know what would be sufficient for you. I can't take you back
if I told you
a movie of it 2,000 years ago.
If I told you that I know somebody that can really do magic, what evidence would convince you?
If I witnessed them do magic.
So, do you think that magic is real?
If somebody can come up to me and perform magic, then I would believe it's
George,
real, yeah.
Do you think that magic is real?
Right now, before anyone's done magic in front of me.
Yeah. Well, I assume you've seen magic tricks before, so you have
magic tricks.
You have an informed opinion on this.
But what are you asking? Whether I think actual
I'm asking you if you think that magic is real.
Actual magic.
Yeah.
I don't think magic is real. I think it's just.
But you said if you saw somebody perform a magic trick, then you would believe it. Have you ever seen somebody perform a magic trick?
No, not a magic trick. If it was genuine, like, I don't know, like Doctor Strange, like they could warp, reality and stuff like that.
So if you saw somebody perform a magic trick, you would believe it.
It depends. If it's David Blaine, I'm gonna know that there's something going on, or there's something behind it, or like dynamo.
Would you know what's behind it?
If it's an actual wizard that can create a fireball,
would you know what's behind the magic trick if David Blaine was doing it? Do you know how he does any of his magic tricks?
No, they use clever deception.
Okay, no.
I mean, I've looked them up and I've seen a few.
So you and I watch David Blaine perform a magic trick, and I say, he really did, I don't know, make that elephant disappear. And you said, I'm pretty sure it's a magic trick. And I said, oh yeah? How did he do it? And you say, I don't know. Does that mean that I am right? Does that mean that I am more likely to be right than you are? Or what?
Well, sorry, I lost you a bit. So David Blaine's made an elephant disappear.
Yep. Now, according to you, it's just a magic trick. You're sure of it. I say, no, the elephant really did cease to exist in the universe. And then you're like, no, it was just a trick. And then I say, oh yeah? How do you do it? You don't know how he did it. So does that mean I'm right? Does that mean that I am more likely to be right than you are? What is the status of our competing claims?
Oh, okay. So if you were fooled by it, and I wasn't, what's to say who was right?
Yeah.
It would be if it was genuine magic. So whether the elephant actually did
That's
disappear or not,
that is just
it was
begging the
a trick.
question. I'm
What
asking
do you
you
mean by that?
which one of us is more likely to be correct. What I'm really asking you is, you're saying that you don't think it's real, but you don't have an explanation for what actually happened. So does that mean that
Okay.
I am valid in saying no, it really was magic?
Yeah, so in the hypothetical, if I don't know how it was done and I can't prove whether it was real magic or not, then it would be whether it was real magic would be who was more likely to be right or wrong. I wouldn't know. Yes, you just said I don't
You're
I
still
don't know if
begging the
we're going in
question
loops.
hardcore. So what I'm trying to get at here is,
Yeah,
just because
just go.
you're a skeptic in this case, just because you don't know how it happened doesn't mean that therefore I'm right. It also isn't evidence that I'm right, that real magic occurred, because we don't have evidence of real magic occurring, even if somebody does a trick right in front of our eyes. It's not evidence when the fact that people can't explain what happened isn't evidence that we really did violate the laws of physics or whatever and perform a real magic trick. So, what evidence of so you said God's existence is evidence in the figure of Jesus and his miracles. What evidence of any of his miracles do we have?
I feel like plenty. Like he raised people from the dead.
That
He
happened?
rose from
What
the dead.
evidence of that happening do we have?
The the biblical account of it happening. I mean,
Okay. How many stories of that type do you believe? Because there are thousands of them.
it depends if it's a parable or some metaphor. I'm gonna look at it that way, but I think there are genuine
So
stories in the
Horace
Bible
was
that are real.
raised from the dead. Do you think that that actually happened?
I don't know.
You don't know. Give me a percent of how likely you think it is to have taken place. I'll even let you use fractions.
50-50. You either did or didn't. Is that not fair?
What's not fair?
What I said, sorry.
Yeah, so what number would you put on it?
Oh, so I said 50-50. Like you either did or didn't. Like
That's your actual answer?
it's, you said probability, so I mean I can only pick that.
Okay. I either do or do not have $1 billion in my room. What are the odds that I do? 50-50? All I'd have
I
to
don't know
do
you,
is
man.
go
I doubt it.
all
I
I'd have
doubt
to
it.
go is all I'd have to do is go to my room about 10 times in a row, and then that would guarantee that during one of those visits there definitely would be money in my room, because those 50-50 odds would multiply every single time. So by the 10th time I go check, it's almost certain that it would have to be there, right? Because it can't not be there 10 times in a row. I don't know if
I'm
that
not sure that's how
statistical
probabilities
example
work.
actually is how that would work, but
I'm
so
not sure about that one. You could try
so
it though.
would you say that the odds that there is money in my room is $1 billion in my room is 50-50?
No, I think yeah, that's a slightly different example. I just don't know about the case that you said before. Me just judging, like it
What
would be
is
very difficult to have
what is
$1 billion in the room.
qualitatively different than uh, a god with a bird for a head rising from the dead versus money in my room? Why is that one more
What?
likely to be true than the money in my room?
Why is it more likely?
Because you gave Horace a 50-50 shot. You didn't give me a number for the money, but you basically said, no, there's no way.
Well, I'm taking the presumption that, you know, God and, you know, supernatural beings exist, but not that you can have like a, you know, fantasy invisible lottery going on your room so that when you enter, you might have $1 billion in your. I don't know.
Fantasy and invisible is exactly how I would describe any god that's ever been imagined. So where this isn't productive. We got to talk about something else. So
Okay.
if God exists, then it wouldn't matter if the Bible had ever been written. Presumably, there would be some way to know that God exists. Do you have any idea in your mind of how we could do that?
Um, just hearing it, you know, he revealed himself in. I mean, you probably know the first story in the Bible. He was living with people as he created them in the beginning of time. Like he wasn't hidden. It's just like it was obvious to see him. Like he was walking amongst people. So you'd hear the stories from
So if
the
God
beginning of time.
exists, then we could just go and see God.
Yeah, the first two people, and then I don't know if you know the creation story, but after Eve ate the apple, um, and Adam ate it as well, then they were separated with him. He wasn't able to be seen. Um, the people literally hid themselves in the trees when God was walking through the
Yeah,
Garden of
I
Eden.
know.
That's how it's written. Okay, so yeah, you know. So based off of that, if it was never written, you just know. People would it would be like a common knowledge thing.
But that's not the case, is it?
What do you
Because
mean?
even if the Bible had never been written, then you're saying, oh, people would just be able to go walk around with God. Okay, well, we don't have if that would be like if there was no book about zebras, then we could still find out zebras exist because we could go to Africa and look at zebras. Can we go
Yeah.
anywhere and look at God?
Well, he would be here if there was no sin. That's what I'm saying. In the creation story, that's what the premise is.
So you don't
That he
have
can't be with us.
evidence. You have maybe
Well,
if
if
history had unfolded
you're
differently,
saying a
then there
hypothetical
would be
where you
evidence. So you
you're
don't
saying a
have
hypothetical
evidence.
where you can't write the Bible, but I'm saying that's evidence. In your hypothetical, I'd have evidence as word of mouth because there would be no sin. There would be no need to have a Bible to correct our laws to get us right with God.
I wasn't
Does
asking
that
you
make
for
sense?
hypothetical evidence. Not really. I was asking you
You said
for.
it where the Bible doesn't exist. That's hypothetical. We have the Bible. You can read it right now. So
Yeah, but
technically it
the
is.
the hypothetical is the Bible not existing, but uh, the evidence would presumably still exist. That's not really hypothetical.
Why would you need evidence if you can see him
To
face to face?
to have a reason to think something. Yeah. So again, if you could see it face to face, can anybody see this face to face?
Yeah, Adam and Eve.
This is just painful. Okay.
You've got Moses. You've got Jesus. You know, people have seen God face to face.
I
There's loads of
asked you
examples.
I was asking you for how you could demonstrate that God exists even if the Bible didn't exist.
Yeah, and I said if the Bible didn't exist, it would be probably because that there was never a serpent in the Garden of Eden. There was never
So
Satan
God would
falling
just
from heaven.
exist and we could walk around. Okay, well that's hypothetical. I can't really deal with hypothetical evidence.
Okay,
What evidence?
so what's the limit? So I'm not allowed a Bible to exist. What evidence am I allowed to use if there's no if sin still exists and God doesn't
Literally
want to
anything you
communicate with
want.
us? So if God can't communicate with us through the only way that we pretty much communicate, it would have to be through sight, and you didn't allow me that. So I don't know what sense in you would just feel
Because
God.
because that isn't evidence. That's you described evidence that we don't have, but that we could have if things were different. The only thing I'm asking you is different is the Bible doesn't exist. How is anybody supposed to know that God exists?
So did the historical accounts exist?
Do
That's
they?
just
Yeah.
so just, but just not the Bible. the historical account of Jesus.
Oh man. Yeah, in this
It's
hypothetical, we don't
it seems
have that.
awkward. Okay, how would we know that God exists?
That's what I'm asking you.
I don't want to go back to the start, but through creation, through seeing things that exist.
And what evidence that the fact that things exist means God did it do we have?
Because God is eternal. It's an obvious
That's a
conclusion.
claim.
If you have an apple, you've got to have an apple tree. You know, if you've got life, you have to have something that brings life. If you have conscious thoughts, you've got to have something that gave you conscious thoughts. You
What
can't have
evidence do you
dust.
have that God did any of that?
What? Conscious thought.
What evidence do you have that God did any of that?
What? Ha have thoughts?
What evidence that God did any of that do you have?
Any of what? What are you specifically referencing?
The things that you said. In order to have life, you have to have a life giver. In order to have thoughts, you have to have a thought giver. What evidence that God did
The
any of that do
creation.
you
I've
have?
already said it.
That's
That's
just
why I thought we
begging the
moved on. The
question. What evidence do you have? Okay. Maybe I can teach you why this is stupid. Do you see this bottle?
Okay,
Do you see this bottle?
I did.
Do
I see
you
the
see
bottle.
the magical bottle genie?
I don't think there is one. I don't know. I
Okay,
don't see
well,
one.
I can prove that you're wrong about, or that it does exist, because if bottles exist, that means that the magical bottle genie that creates bottles exists.
I think you're just strawmanning it now. I'm not saying that bottles are created by metal. But I'm saying there's probably bottle manufacturers. That's
No,
logical,
there's a
no?
bottle. If I claim that the reason bottles exist is because there's a bottle genie, and therefore the bottle genie exists because bottles exist, that's begging the question. If you say God exists because there is creation and creation comes from God, therefore the existence of things is the evidence that God that creates things exists, you're going in a circle. You're begging the question. Come on,
Yeah, I
George.
don't think it is. Yeah, I just don't think it is. Come on, George. Sorry.
So, what evidence
Like how
that
can you
God
have a
created the universe do you have?
what sort of power would it take in order to create the Big Bang? You'd need
I
something
have I have no
very
idea,
powerful.
and neither do
A
you.
lot well, I think it's God.
Explain. How much energy did God use?
As much as it took.
Right.
I'm not going to
God
have,
did it. How did he do
measurements
it?
for you.
In the way he did it. This is, you're not
Exactly.
explaining anything. This isn't evidence.
I, yeah, it
It's
won't be
almost an
possible for me to
argument, but
explain.
an
I've
argument
already
isn't
said this.
evidence.
I've already said this, bro. I'm not going to be able to explain how the mind of God works, am I? I'm a finite human who
Right.
lives
So
for a
then
hundred
you
years. He's an eternal God who lives
so if you can't
forever.
explain anything, in what sense could you
I can
ever have
explain things.
evidence?
I can't explain the most probably like pivotal moment in all of creation sort of things.
Then why should I believe it?
Even if I was an Einstein level mathematician, I wouldn't be able to explain it.
George, then
Do you know
why
what I
should
mean?
I believe it?
Because there's solid evidence.
What evidence?
Like I said, with the Bible, with Jesus, with historical accounts, with using your eyes and your senses,
The fact that I can smell
practicing
things proves that God exists in what way?
the fact that you have logic and reason and can know
No,
using,
you
as you've
said
already told me.
senses. So the fact that I can smell things prove God exists in
I,
what way?
I didn't say senses, but that, I
Yes,
mean,
you did
we can,
say senses. The word you
well,
specifically, the specific word you said was senses. So,
okay, I'm sorry if I said that, but we can still use that. Okay, so I won't backpedal. Okay, so you use your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your nose, and that's coordinated to your brain. You hear things in your senses, and you follow with logical conclusions.
Yep,
Then
that's all
you use all of your
biologically
senses.
explainable. Where does God enter the equation?
Yeah, your consciousness.
What is that?
It's your you know your it's like your innate lawgiver. Like you know things are wrong and right. Just be like
That's
I feel like it's common knowledge.
conscience, not consciousness.
It stems from the same thing.
Why is a
You are
conscience
aware
evidence of God?
of your conscious because he writes the law. So if we all know and all have an objective,
What
feeling
evidence
of
of
right
that
and
is
wrong,
there?
whether it's well, we have a law system. We have people that have visceral reactions to, heinous crimes, bombings, terrorist acts. I feel like that's sufficient evidence to know that we can have reactions and feelings and sense things are right and wrong.
Why would
So we
that
have
not be biologically innate?
it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to not be, but the thing is
Okay,
that's still
so this
consciousness.
isn't
That's what we defined it
evidence.
as.
So this could be evidence of God, or it could be evidence of something that is biologically innate. Now, how do we tell the difference?
Because we have different positions on who created the universe and how it started. That's the only
No,
that's the
the
only thing
question was, how could we tell the difference?
between whether consciousness is biological or
Are our innate moral instincts biological instincts and therefore have a naturalistic explanation, or do they come from God? How do we tell the difference?
they don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I mean, there could be a difference, but then again, it's just up to the way that God's decided it. We could have naturally evolved with a biological conscience to have grown and improved over time as we ironed it out. That could be explained in a natural way. It also could have
So
been
you've
explained that God
described a
started
world.
that process.
So in your explanation here, the world where God exists and the world where God doesn't exist are not distinguishable from each other.
So, what do you mean they're not distinguishable?
You said, oh, it could be biological, but a really long time ago, God just pushed the very first domino, and that's how things ended up the way they are. So, in other
Yeah, or
words,
it could be that way.
in
It could be.
both of these worlds, there's no evidence that God did it.
No, they could not be that way as well. It could be that he continues to intervene. I'm not saying it's either or. I'm
So,
still
what
remaining in my position.
what
I don't know the mind
evidence
of God.
what evidence that God has anything to do with it do you have?
Just that we're not like other animals.
In
We're
what
not the
way?
same in terms of in this aspect of consciousness and morality and conscience.
Why is that the trait that would determine that God exists?
I'm not saying that's the pivotal trait. I'm just saying that's one of them because you said on this premise, what would determine this? I'd say, well, animals they just do things based off of instinct
Do you know that
and
other animals,
desire.
well, yeah, but you literally conceded that it might be the case that human moral instincts are just biological, which means they are just instincts as well. Are you aware that there are other
Sure.
animals that have an intrinsic sense of fairness?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be elevated to the human level.
Why would it doesn't matter?
They can have awareness.
Humans are strong, but they're not as strong as gorillas. Therefore, God must be a gorilla god because it would have to rise to the level of gorilla strength.
No, I don't think that follows.
Yeah, I know you are correct. Now, use that same logic for what you're talking about. Other animals have an innate
Well, I believe
biological
God is moral.
trait. We have a different and more highly developed version of that trait, therefore God. Nope.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but because, yeah, of what I believe in the Bible, I'm trying to be as honest as possible. Um, I believe God is a lawgiver. It's just in his nature, it's part of what he is. So, no, I don't have specific evidence in that aspect that would prove it to you. But I don't think there is going to be solid evidence I can give you. Um, it is a faith-based religion. I've seen things that I wouldn't have been able to explain,
As
magic
long as
tricks
you
that you
admit
would
it.
call, yeah. But I'm not, um, afraid to say that. I still think it's worth you researching, though. I still think it's worth you finding more things that will convince you of my position, because you have good arguments, but I'm not going to say you argue in bad faith, because I don't think you do. I think you've got good points. Um, you shut down a couple of my arguments, and I think that's fine because I'm not a debater. So, um, but yeah, I think I've taken up loads of time. Um, it's been a great chat though. It's been a good learning experience for me. Um, so I definitely try and think of things to say to people with your ideas in the future. But yeah, I appreciate it. I'll give other people some time to talk because they're probably angry with me. But yeah, it's been a good time, man. I hope you have a good rest of the day.
You as well.
Cheers.
Later. See, the guy was. I like that guy, especially at the end, because he was like, look, you've given me things to think about, and so now I'm going to go sharpen my intellectual toolkit with respect to these things. I think that that's actually really cool.
Who let J.D. Vance become a science communicator?
I'm not wearing eyeliner. And I'm not that fat. Oh, man. Dineksha Trapezius, what's up?
What's up? What's up? So what's your claim?
They just kind of scroll along the top. Have you seen any of them?
Oh, it's hard for me to read. I have
no.
books. Check profile.
So I'll just tell them to you quickly. Earth is not flat. Do you think the Earth is flat?
Well, as of right now, I believe the Earth is oblate spheroid.
Okay. I think creationism is stupid. Do you think the whole universe was created 6,000 years ago?
No.
Okay. Evolution is true. Do you agree?
Partially depends on what you mean by evolution. If you mean change in frequency or adaptation, then yeah. But if you mean that humans evolved from bacteria, then that's the claim I disagree with.
Okay.
It's possible in the animal kingdom. It's possible, yeah.
So, do you think that the Earth is billions of years old? Because I asked you if you think creationism is true, and you said no.
I believe, yeah, it could be. I'm not sure of the exact date. It could be billions, trillions of years old.
No, it ain't trillions of years old. So, if life on this planet has been around for possibly billions of years, then God, why is this not working? Sorry, I'm trying to open something on my computer. If life's been around for billions of years, then wouldn't you expect that life to dramatically change over time?
Yeah, it's possible. Adaptation is possible, yeah. I don't disagree with that. But
so okay, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way instead, because you invoked humans. Do you think that humans have existed for the entire time that the Earth has existed?
Most likely not. No.
Okay, then how did the human species come to exist? I say through evolution.
I say God created Adam and Eve as the first human beings, and it is likely that they, in terms of their genetic makeup, for God, it's not possible to. So when our claim is that God evolved, or he could have done the evolution part within a fraction of a second from dirt into actual human beings. So it's not even I think it's irrelevant to talk about the actual methodology of how God did it. Because essentially you and I are saying the same thing. You're saying that we evolved from stardust at some point.
We're not saying the same thing at all.
Okay, so how do we evolve? Were we stardust at some point?
I was never stardust, no.
Okay, so before the Earth was formed, where did the Earth come from?
The Earth coalesced from a nebula of material in space, but that's not the same thing as that's where I came from.
Mm-hmm. How is it not the same thing? Nebula of stuff eventually became
because,
Earth.
Okay.
Earth eventually gave rise to you.
I can explain it to you. I have a cat, right? And my cat eats cat food. And obviously animals need food to grow and nourish their bodies. So is it accurate to say that cat food turns into my cat?
It helps in the growth of your cat.
Sure. Is it accurate to say that cat food turns into cat?
In one sense, yes.
Okay, well, I think it's absolutely not reasonable because it skips about 1 billion necessary transformative steps in between. So,
Okay.
Stardust, at one point, there were no living creatures on planet Earth. I'll grant that, but that was billions of years ago. Today, there are living creatures. So you don't get to skip billions of years worth of steps and say Stardust turned into people. So if humans did evolve...
You know what I meant. You know what I meant. So I just didn't mean Stardust
Kind of.
itself. Well,
So
I think you know what I meant.
Sure. If humans...
So other laws of physics were involved. You're saying that the laws of physics were involved in turning this nebula into the Earth. Chemical reactions were responsible in converting this into the Earth. And within the Earth, there's chemical reactions taking place that eventually gave rise to the first cell magically. And the first cell evolved into bacteria, into banana, whatever. And then we are now as human beings. So that's your claim.
Amen.
Yes,
Hail Satan.
absolutely.
Let's
Alright.
go.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you knew what I meant. I mean, you know the arguments, so I don't know why get into the details. But what is before the with these discussions that I've had in the past, a lot of the problems come about when we are not clear on certain definitions of truth about God, definition about what is evidence. So I think we should run that through before we go into any details about me giving you proof that God exists. Because I can give you all the proof in the world and you could just say, oh, by the way, that's...
I thought we were having a
Because we have a
conversation
different
about
definition.
evolution.
Okay, you want to stick to evolution? I'm not interested in evolution, by the way. I told you my position, that I believe that human beings came from Adam and Eve, and it is possible
Sure.
that evolution took place in the animal kingdom. Adaptation is something possible.
If you would be so kind,
Changing-
though, can we spend like 1 minute on the topic?
So I'm not well versed with biology or anything like that, but we can if you want to.
If humans did evolve, what would the evidence look like?
If the humans did evolve from a banana, or
No, not from a banana. Just if humans evolved in general, what would the evidence look like?
if the humans did evolve,
What would the evidence look like?
for me, evidence is not just limited to testimonial, stuff, evidence from the scientists. So for me, evidence should be logical.
So,
I don't know what logical
um,
evidence would look like.
can
When you
I
think about-
can I like help you out here a little bit? Like, if somebody said that a fish lived in water, what would the evidence look like to determine whether fish live in water?
If the fish lived in water, what would the evidence look like? So they
Yeah.
have to define what a fish is, and define to me what water
What
is.
the? We're going to have to skip this. This is what the evidence would look like, and we do have this evidence. Humans have very highly derived traits. we're very clearly primates, but we have sorry, I got a notification that my live is restricted and it distracted me. But we have very highly derived traits. Unlike the other primates, we have grotesquely large craniums and we have relatively flat faces. So you'd expect to see the gradual change or evolution of those traits, and we have exactly that evidence. So the evidence...
Where's that picture from?
The internet.
The internet, and you believe whatever is posted on the internet?
I don't believe everything that is posted on the internet, but I've read also lots of books, and I've seen photos from museums, and I've been to museums myself, and I've seen huge numbers of... I've seen huge numbers of things, specimens, whatever, that support life going through stages of evolution over time.
Yeah, I dismiss that because that's all testimonial evidence. You're believing what other people are telling you to believe. Did you conduct any experiment on your own?
Evolutionary experiments? No.
Okay. So basically you're relying on other people to tell you what is true.
That is how almost everybody gains almost all of the knowledge they have, except for personal knowledge about their own life.
So you're allowed to do that, but we are not.
I never said anybody is or is not allowed to do anything. It's just it's just about what's reasonable and who actually has the evidence.
So if I make a claim that something happened 1400 years ago or 5,000 years ago through testimonial evidence of people that I can trust, you're not going to dismiss that as parsimonious or something that's just, not something you don't accept because you've accepted that standard for yourself.
What kind of person dismisses something because it's parsimonious? That doesn't make any sense. A story is not sufficient evidence to make me believe in magic. It's not a sufficient standard of evidence for you either.
Evolution of human beings from bacteria is also a story. It's also a form of a story.
Yeah, but there's predictable evidence for it. For example, we should share genes with them, and we do. So we have the evidence.
Homology is an assumption in evolution.
It's a testable assumption.
Testable assumption? Assumptions are assumptions. What do you mean testable?
It's testable. A hypothesis is a testable assumption about the world.
Hypotheses are assumption by definition.
Yeah, and they are testable if they are scientific.
No. Hypothesis can either turn out to be true or false based on what the assumption was, based on the new data that you discover.
Yeah, so in other words, it's testable. You just said what I said in more words.
Okay. So
so a long time ago, Darwin came up with this idea that all life on the planet evolved from a common stock, and we know what the evidence of that theoretically would have been. Among many things, it would have been that all life on the planet is related. All life on the planet is related. That is positive evidence for evolution.
That's one assumption out of... So the other option could be if God exists, he could create a monkey, he could create a human with similar traits.
What's the test for that?
The burden of proof is on you to say that.
No,
that
you're the one
happen.
giving me the claim. What's the test for your claim?
You believe that cannot happen. Is that your claim?
I never said that it can't happen, although I don't believe in magic. So establish that magic exists, and then we would have a reason to start at step one here. So give me evidence that magic exists.
Define magic.
You can define it according to your own terms. If I have a problem with the way you put it, then I'll let you know. Because again, this is your burden.
If you define magic to be something that happens outside of the known natural laws or patterns that we observe, then I do believe in magic.
Do you think that God uses the laws of physics to create monkeys?
I have no idea. I'm agnostic about how God does anything.
Okay, so you don't have any evidence then, nor could you ever have any evidence because you're agnostic. So we don't have any evidence of God, and you are incapable of providing any evidence because you're agnostic. which means
I don't
you
care.
don't think anybody can know any of this. So,
No, so
what do you want to talk about next?
anything I'm agnostic about are things that are irrelevant to me. So I don't care how God created anything. The actual methodology or the process behind creating Adam or Eve or the natural laws or anything like that. So I don't understand why. So I mean, yeah, it goes back to the whole idea of what do you actually care about? Do you care if God existed?
I don't know.
You don't. So you don't even know if you cared if God existed. Why are you?
There
having
are
this-
an inconceivable number of possible gods whose existence has no effect on my life or my afterlife or anything. So I can't begin to care.
Right. So again, if you remember what I said initially, that we always get stuck with this idea of defining what God is, because every time I bring up God, they're like, "Oh, by the way, there could be 40,000 gods." So, what is the definition of God you ought to care about if it was true?
A god that will seek personal vengeance against me for esoteric reasons.
Okay, that's a good point. And what about a God that will reward you for accepting, or believing, or obeying Him? Do you not care about that either?
I would say that's in the same category as what I said before.
Why only punish? Why not? Why just have a negative opinion about God?
Because if the options are, let's just say the options are, you are either punished or nothing happens. Well, I care a great deal more about the punishment than I do about nothing happening. So when you add reward plus the punishment, then I still really only care about the punishment. Like if I had two competing worlds, you either get punishment or reward, and in this other world, you either get punishment or nothing, then it's the punishment is the thing I'm trying to avoid in both cases, and that's my kitty cat.
Yeah, for me,
Yeah.
the first one makes more sense because every decision that I make in my daily life is motivated either by improving my quality of life, being happy, the fact that I go to work, buy groceries, send kids to school, is motivated is geared towards happiness and avoiding pain for me and for my loved ones. So I really don't understand where the idea comes from that it's either punishment or nothingness. Why not punishment and reward are the two dichotomous propositions we ought to care about?
That's fine. So therefore, what?
Therefore, the definition of God I ought to care about is a definition that would have a real world consequence for either accepting or rejecting this God, and a real world consequence of my beliefs and actions. So all the 40,000 so-called straw man, red herring definitions of God you can come up with, it doesn't matter.
Why are they red herrings?
Because if you bring up Zeus, I believe Zeus it does not exist or doesn't. I don't care about the existence of Zeus, and neither do you. So why talk about something we both believe is a false proposition or a false concept?
That doesn't mean that it doesn't
Red herring.
exist. I don't believe in your God either.
Do you believe Zeus exists?
I don't believe that Zeus exists, but that doesn't mean that Zeus doesn't exist.
Neither do I. So why are we shouldn't be talking about Zeus then?
Because
Or
you're the
elephant.
one that said it's a red herring. Why is it a red herring?
Because you are the ones who brought up 40,000 other definitions of God.
I'm still waiting for an answer as to why Zeus is a red
I
herring.
answered you. It's a red herring because it's a deflection from the actual discussion about the definition of God we ought to care about if it existed. So I could care less about a less than all powerful God when I have an all powerful God to care about.
That's an interesting take.
Hold on.
Okay.
It's an interesting take. Yeah, it is. It's very logical.
Okay.
I meant
So-
interesting as in like if I were to walk down the street and see somebody doing like a really unique yoga pose where they were able to like fountain their diarrhea into their open mouth because they have their butt up in the air, I would walk by and I would say, interesting. I meant it was that kind of interesting.
Okay. No, that's interesting.
But like,
Yeah.
you're
analogy
talking
is
about like how a god, like you don't care about a god being all powerful. Like, what happens if like you're the god? Let's say like hypothetically, the god that you believe in is real, just hypothetically speaking, and you're walking in the woods and you're seeing him like poof things into existence, and you're like, okay, can you make me like an all-American breakfast? And he's like, no, I can't do that. That's out of my limits of my power. But I can do literally everything else. Do you not care about that guy who created the universe? Like, you just don't care?
Wait, what? I don't understand the analogy. An all-powerful God cannot
Okay,
create
so
a breakfast?
I'm saying, like, hypothetically, your God exists, right? But your interpretation of the God that you believe that exists is wrong, and he's not all powerful. And you're walking in the woods and you're seeing him just like poof rabbits into existence, right? And you're like, hey, God, how's it going? And he's like, I'm doing good. How are you? And you're like, say, since you're poofing things into existence, I'm really hungry. Can you make me an all-American breakfast? And he's like, no, that's something that I just can't do with my powers. But I can create universes. I can create rabbits. I can make you like a French breakfast, but I can't make you an American breakfast. Is that a God you just don't care about anymore?
So all that proves is that my interpretation of that all-powerful God was actually wrong. That's all it proves. Like, I don't
So,
understand your
but
argument.
you said that, but prior to you said that you wouldn't care about a God that's all powerful.
Yeah, by definition, if something
But
is
I
less than
just gave
all-powerful.
you an interpretation of your God that's not all powerful. So
Do you
you would
understand
not care about your God anymore, right?
Do you understand the difference between a logical definition of something and my interpretation of it? Could be true or false. Logically, what I'm talking about is an all-powerful entity definitionally that cannot be that something
Right.
cannot
And
be
I'm
more
taking that
powerful than-
definition and I'm saying that your God is not that, and he can't create an American breakfast.
Oh, you're changing the definition of what an all-powerful means. I
No,
mean,
I'm just saying that he doesn't have that property. You're not listening.
okay, so we're not talking about the same entity then, and it's a different God you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm just saying that your entity that you believe exists does not have
Right.
that property. Your interpretation's wrong, right? He created the universe. I'll grant you that he created the universe and everything, but he cannot create an American breakfast. He just isn't
Okay.
all powerful. Do you not care about that God anymore?
No. I
Interesting.
only care about the God that is all-powerful. Yes.
Okay.
And
So you would denounce your
I don't
God
get the
then?
point. To be honest, I did not understand what the point of this was, but we can move on.
I don't even remember what we're talking about. Do you think you have evidence that your God exists or something
Yeah,
like that? I don't
we were
actually know
talking
what we're
about-
talking about.
We were talking about definitions, and
Oh, no.
and then you pulled me back to evolution for a minute. So we now understand which God we are talking about, right? I don't want to hear like, oh, what about the Ganesh?
Well,
Like,
sort of. We're talking about a nebulous, completely incoherent God, yes.
oh, so you think that this definition of God is impossible by definition?
I
Is that
said
your
it's
claim?
nebulous and incoherent. I didn't say it's
Can
impossible.
you prove it?
What?
Can you prove this claim?
That it's incoherent? Yes, I can demonstrate that you have zero ability to describe anything about it.
You haven't even asked me the definition properly. All we were discussing was all power.
I didn't say this has happened yet. I said that it will happen. So maybe I'm a
Okay.
prophet.
So you
Okay,
know the
tell me
yeah.
about your God.
So the definition of God that I'm working with is all powerful, all knowing, most merciful, all good, eternally existing, and independent. So you
Okay.
have-
So
Coherent already.
describe any of
Well,
those properties.
describe it.
Yep.
Do you understand what is it that you don't understand by power?
It's up
'Cause
to
I
you.
have no
I
idea
said
what-
you wouldn't be able to do this, so please don't prove me right.
Well, you can act obtuse. I don't
It's
know. What your
literally
intentions are.
according to you. It's not according to me. It's literally according to you.
So power would mean the ability to do something that's within the realm of logic, and yeah, you can just make that all powerful. In the English language, it's pretty straightforward what all power actually means.
Well, those sure were some words.
So you have issues with actually
So,
me defining.
but he's
and-
all good, right? You
He's
said he
he's
was
all good
right?
and all merciful. So why has your God not gotten rid of evil?
Most merciful, I said. You didn't hear what I said.
So if he is the most merciful, is it merciful to allow people to die pointlessly when you can stop it
no.
from happening?
No. So we believe.
No?
In a
Okay, I
day
agree.
that's-
So your God doesn't exist then.
Prove it.
Evil exists. Your God, if your
Yeah.
God is all powerful and most merciful, then it wouldn't allow for evil to exist. So it doesn't exist.
So we believe in the day of resurrection, day of judgment, where all of the wrongs will be corrected, and they will be rewarded for anything that was unjust to them, done unjustly to them. So where's the evil here? Can you prove this?
Sure. So what's going to happen to, I don't know, just some random, I don't know, let me try to think of an
Babies
example.
dying.
O.J. Simpson, right? He almost certainly killed some people. What's going to happen to him?
On the day of judgment, he'll be accountable for his actions if he actually did it. If babies died without any reason, obviously any child that dies is without a reason. There should be no justification of a child dying. So they will be rewarded on the day of judgment with whatever rewards they get.
What about Christians who killed people?
Yeah, they will be punished. Christians will enter hellfire for eternity, in my opinion, for believing that Jesus is God.
Oh, so you're a Muslim. I kind of thought you were.
Why?
Because specifically earlier you referenced, what if I believe in something that happened 1,400 years ago? That's the timeline you're working with. Do you think a husband can rape his wife?
No.
Okay.
That's forbidden in Islam.
What? No,
Is
you
this
didn't
the topic?
understand the question at all. Do you think a husband... Okay, so you said it's forbidden.
Forbidden.
That's a
It's
very
Islam.
different
A sin, yeah.
thing.
It's
Okay.
worse than...
So you think it's
worse
wrong
than-
and it's not permissible?
It's not permissible, yes.
Okay, well, that's
Why do we
a
get
very
to-
different
why
interpretation
do we
of when
get
you say
to
no.
From God existing, how do we get to grape? If you want to talk about morality, we can start with the definition of what is actually moral. In
Go ahead and
naturalism.
tell me something that would be immoral.
Can you prove to me in naturalism that unaliving is a bad thing?
It's maladaptive, which is by definition bad. Can you tell me anything that's
So
bad?
if it was adaptive, it would be good.
No, not necessarily. Can you tell me anything that's
So you
immoral?
retract it. I'm trying to prove to you that you have no standard of morality yourself.
That's fine. Neither do you. Can you tell me something that's
No, I do.
immoral?
Anything that God forbids is considered immoral.
So God is constrained by moral actions then?
No, God is all-knowing.
So
and
what if
all-wise.
God told you to
He knows-
stomp on a baby's skull and then eat the brains? Would that be
Yeah,
moral
that would
or
be a
immoral?
contradiction within with the definition of God that I'm working with? It would
So
be
your
a
God is
contradiction. So
constrained by morality. So morality
No,
exists
no.
independent of your God.
What it proves is that your question is irrelevant and false.
It's not. So
Yeah,
God
by
can't do.
definition is irrelevant.
So if God told you to stomp on a baby and then eat its brains that are splattered all over the sidewalk, that would be good or that would be wrong?
Well, as knowing the definition of God that I know right now, that would be that question does not exist. It's a false. There's a
What if I said?
Yeah,
within your
what if I
question.
said in order
I'd be a
to-
coward if I were you too. So would it
What-
be
what if I
wrong
said
or would
that
it be
in order to
good?
do hold on, Peterson. What if in order to do that it was to save everybody on the planet? Like, let's say, like he's like, you got to stomp on this baby's head, eat the brains, in order to save the rest of the planet. Is it good or bad?
I don't know. I mean, you're giving me hypothetical. So we are working with a God that is most merciful, all-knowing, all-wise, and all-good, right?
Yeah, he's all knowing.
Okay.
Yeah, he's all
So
knowing.
if
He's
he
all
asked me
good,
to
right? He
stomp
says
on
it's
a
a good
baby-
thing to eat the baby's brains.
Right. So he would know if that baby would turn into a future mustache man or not. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be moral in this hypothetical scenario. Yes. What's your point?
So everything is morally permissible in your worldview.
Yeah, God knows if that baby would turn into a future mustache man.
So, okay, if everything is morally permissible, then nothing is moral or immoral.
No, God anything God forbids is immoral. Anything God permits is moral.
Is there anything that God cannot permit?
I'm agnostic about what God cannot permit. It's irrelevant to my salvation. So,
well, I think you answered this earlier. There is absolutely nothing that God can't permit. So there's no such thing as what the moral and what the immoral things are. You just believe in some weird kind of divine command theory.
yeah, so the command theory morality is really applicable to human beings. It's not even outside of, like, even if you go to the animal kingdom, we don't question why a gazelle got slaughtered by a lion. So the idea of unaliving an innocent person or stealing or doing injustice to people are concepts that are relevant only to human beings. So yeah.
So God's morality is completely irrational and arbitrary then?
Yeah, I wouldn't say God's morality. What do you mean by that?
How does God decide what is and what is not moral?
I don't know. I'm agnostic about how God decides anything.
Then why should anybody believe you that you have the moral standard when you can't describe how it works or what it's based on?
So I have evidence of the existence of God. I have evidence why there's evil and good in the world. I can prove it using the argument from morality, argument from teleology, all of these things.
Literally still waiting.
I literally just told you why people trust me. Yes. Oh, you want to run all the arguments? I don't memorize all these syllogisms.
No, I didn't. I didn't want anything like that. So, how does God decide what is and what is not moral?
I don't know.
Okay,
It's
so
irrelevant.
you don't have a right to claim that you have the moral standard because you don't even know how it works.
Yeah. But I don't care how it works. It's irrelevant, I said.
I don't care.
Why do you care how it
What
works?
makes
Like,
you
why-
think
why
that
does it matter?
what makes you think you have the ethic and the religion that's going to cause you salvation when you don't even know how it works or if what you believe in even is what's good?
Because I'm defining God to be all good, all just, all merciful.
Okay, let me do the same thing. And I believe in a God that says, kill all people who are you.
Mm-hmm.
Am I just?
Oh, well, you have to provide your evidence for what you believe.
It's personally revealed to me.
Okay. Yeah, we have to prove that God actually revealed that to you.
I did prove it by the revelation. Well, actually, I'm not the standard, and neither are you. God is. And God's perfect revelation cannot ever fault, and he revealed it to me. And so, therefore, that's how I know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So knowing what I know now, I have to put
a
you
kid
in a
diddler,
philosopher.
some desert rat kid diddler in the 600s can say God told me a bunch of stuff, and then he goes off and diddles some kids named Aisha, and then people believe it for no good reason. And you can't take that claim, or you can't take my claim, which is equal to yours, except there's no kid diddling. That's just in your belief system. And say that yours, epistemologically, logically, or anything, is any better.
Yeah, of course, you will always go to this argument of marriage and age of consent. You have nothing else to talk about, right? So why
Did Muhammad
let me ask you this question.
penetrate a 9-year-old girl named Aisha?
I don't know.
Yeah, you do. So you
don't know.
reject the hadiths?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so
I don't
it
get
did happen,
the
and you do
private-
believe it. Was it
Is that how
wrong
you
that
talk
he
about someone?
diddled a 9-year-old?
Why would you talk about someone like that? Like, I don't like. Isn't
Why
that
would I call
insulting?
Muhammad a kid diddler? Well, he diddled kids,
Right.
so that would be
No,
that's
so can
part
you
of the
prove that?
framework I use. People that diddle kids, I call kid diddlers. What do you
What
call
age
people who
does-
diddle kids?
So when we are saying from our
Dineksha, what do you call people that diddle kids?
yeah, of course you're gonna mute me now, right? When I'm answering.
You're not answering. The only question you're allowed to answer is, what do you call kid diddlers?
Yeah, I mean that's would be something that's
You call
immoral.
them prophets, right?
What's diddling? What's diddling? I don't understand that term.
Yeah, you actually do. So was it wrong that he had conjugal relationships with a 9-year-old?
If she was physically, emotionally, and spiritually an adult, then yeah, there's morally nothing wrong with that. Can you prove it is?
How do you know? How do you know when those things happen?
How do you know? Because of we have hadith showing that she was an adult.
So if it actually wasn't right, but these people had to preserve Muhammad's image of perfection or whatever, then couldn't they just write down that she was real mature for her age?
In
that
atheism,
is what would happen, right? Yeah, no, we're not talking about atheism. So is it possible that the hadiths are lies?
Why are you muting me when I'm trying to ask you a question?
Is it possible that the hadiths are lies about her mental and about her maturity?
Yeah, I mean, some hadiths mention that she was actually 19. So the age is irrelevant in Islam.
Age is irrelevant in Islam. Goodbye. Holy shit.
That was brutal.
Yeah. I mean, it always goes there, but...
I was going to ask him about the angel in the cave and whether it's more likely that Muhammad was high on shrooms instead of actually seeing an angel.
Age is irrelevant in Islam. I can't believe he actually said that. Oh, man. Age is irrelevant
that guy's on
in
a list
Islam.
Now.
Oh, man. So, babies can be very mature for their age. Did you know that, Future?
You know, I was going to make a joke, but
I don't. Age is irrelevant in Islam. Man, that's crazy. Well, I don't think Ghost is actually there. Well, it's not letting me disconnect them, though. Can I do it over here? That person's not connecting either.
Terrible live streamer. Can't even get people to connect. Terrible.
I know. Well, I mean, I was talking to that guy for quite a while, so I think they pieced out. Three derm. What's up?
I just had a question on what evidence of God would look like to you.
What would evidence of God?
What would convince you that God exists?
I'm not 100% sure. I know that God knows what it would take, and God has chosen not to provide any of that information to me. I can see myself.
That's a claim.
Is God all powerful? Or is God all knowing and all powerful?
No, what I'm saying is you're saying God has not presented that information to you. He may have, like, he may give us a means.
No, because then I would know it.
No. What you're presupposing is that God is subjected to automatically make you believe in him, right? Whereas it could be there could be good. Well, you said it wasn't presented to you, but the information could have been presented to you, but you could be wrong. You could be mistaken.
Because no. Literally by the very wording of your question, what evidence would convince me? That evidence has not been presented to me. Because if it had been, I would be convinced.
But I see what you're saying. You're saying, yes, by definition, that evidence has not been presented to you because you don't believe in God.
Yeah.
Right? But you could still, for example, there's some things that haven't been presented to me, right? Like, say a random tool. I don't know. I've never seen this tool before. But I don't know. Or like a description of a tool. I've never seen it before.
A purple zebra, right? Nobody has ever seen one before, but I can imagine what a purple zebra, what the evidence for it would look like. It would look like a zebra that's purple.
Yes, you're describing what it would look like. What I'm asking is, what would that evidence look like?
Yeah, I have no clue what the evidence of a God that is magical, supernatural, exists in a completely different realm, whatever. I have no idea what that evidence would look like. Now, if God is really all-knowing and all-powerful, he knows exactly how to reveal that information to me, but he hasn't.
Well, the thing is, I don't. You're not making the argument that he's bound to reveal that information to you that he knows would convince you, right? You're not making that claim, right?
I'm not saying that God has to do this. Just saying that it hasn't. Clearly, God has not.
Okay. I didn't know if you were, because I see you're like a science person. I didn't know if you were going to make the mistake of giving some sort of material evidence, right? Because God's immaterial, so it wouldn't really make sense to give some material evidence standard to show that God exists, because he's immaterial, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
So people, there's two different. Well, I think there's two different things here. I can believe that I would be personally convinced that if I looked under a microscope at some random goo and that goo assembled to say the words, "Hey Eric, it's Jesus here. Been thinking about you recently. Okay, love you, bye. XOXO." That would, I can believe that would convince me. But I think that it would still be more likely that I hallucinated it. Or how do we weigh, like, what are the odds of that happening spontaneously or randomly or whatever, versus how do we weigh that against what are the odds that it really was, like, ginned up magically by God? Well, we can't do any kind of statistical analysis on magic because we don't know that it even is real. So,
but you're making a mistake right there. Like right there, you just made the mistake. You said we can't do any statistical analysis to show that this is how we know it's from God, but you're using a scientific standard. Like you're limiting the immaterial to the material. Like how we measure things materially, like with statistics, science, scientific method and stuff, you're limiting God and what we would need to show to those physical standards, which I would say is a category error. Do you see what I'm saying?
I can kind of agree with you, but if I agree with you, then there can't be any evidence of God because humans don't have any other experience with the world than through empirical.
No, that's not true because we have something called philosophy, right? We can show in philosophy, we can reason to certain ends to show that something cannot exist or that something has to exist, right? That would be. Could you explain why?
I think you can point out that something that by its very definition is a contradiction can't exist, or it's not a valid concept, because I think there are plenty of things that don't really exist. They're just concepts, but they can be invalid concepts, like a circular triangle.
Exactly, yes. They would be logical impossibilities.
Right.
But we use philosophical evidence.
But the thing that says it has to exist, no, that's just an argument. An argument isn't evidence. If an argument proves something, then I'll just invoke the God-defeating penguin, and therefore God doesn't exist.
I'll rename it something else. I was going under the impression that evidence is like support for claims, right? It doesn't have to be material things, right? There can be support for logical claims. Right? I would consider that to be evidence. Those are immaterial pieces of evidence. Does that make sense?
I think I'm probably with you there. Yeah, I mean, like you can prove mathematically that a mathematical statement is false.
Yes, exactly.
So you can prove or disprove something in that sense.
Yes, yeah. So that's essentially what I'm saying. So when I asked the question, what evidence would it take to prove that God exists, I was kind of working under that framework. It could be immaterial or material, like how you answered the question. I'm just trying to get.
I can provide you something that will convince me to prove that as evidence for God that exists. We'll do a test here on this live right now. Ready?
The exist off.
The exist off. We're gonna do that. So
Can we be genuine in this discussion or no?
we're being genuine. I'm being 100%
Yeah,
genuine.
obviously
You
you're
see
not.
this? This is like a
Obviously
Bluetooth
you're not. I
headphone
saw the
case.
host's face. Obviously,
Look at this. Okay.
yeah. See,
Like, I'm sorry. Did the middle of my sentence cut you off?
yeah, it's okay. You can be disingenuous. That's all right. I've been
Okay.
polite, but
Okay. So
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Like, we're trying to do some evidence here, and you're really distracting here. So I'm gonna put my headphone case down there, and I'm gonna wave my hand. I'm gonna go, okay, God, it's all on you. You got 5 seconds to move this object. Go.
All right, host, can we get back to the real discussion? I was being polite. I think we were having a good discussion up until now.
I mean, I think that's a genuine.
Obviously not. Come on.
Well,
Obviously not.
it's a test. It proves that a God that would move the Bluetooth headphones doesn't exist. Now, is that the God you believe in?
Nope. So let's get back to the discussion. No, it's not. Because you said yourself that you're not making the argument that God's bound to reveal certain things. Like, God knows how you would be convinced, right? But he's not bound to reveal those exact things to you. So whoever this was, just their argument's moot because you literally said you weren't making that argument, right? So let's move on. Man, now I lost my train of thought.
Well, can your God interact with the material world?
Yes.
Well,
So
then
he
that
didn't
could have
interact
been
with the
evidence.
material world with the
Yeah.
headphones. Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been, but like I said, the host already said that they're not making the argument that God is bound to reveal certain things to him, right? That he knows would convince him. He already made that argument, or he already made that statement.
Yeah, not bound
So
to, but it could. But anyways, I'm fine with going with whatever you want to do.
Okay, yeah. So do you think we could reason, like just as we can reason through philosophy to show that certain things cannot exist in any possible world, no matter the physical laws, right? Like a squared circle, like you mentioned, right? Those are logical impossibilities. So like the laws of logic precede like our physical laws. The physical laws could have been different. You don't believe that? Do you believe the physical laws of our universe could have been different?
Oh, clearly, yeah.
Okay. Do you think the laws of logic could be different? If you're going to say yes, then you would disagree with any academic philosopher in existence.
Oh, well, then I probably should say yes. No, just kidding.
Okay, yeah.
In the sense that, like, law of identity says that something cannot be, A and B at the same time or whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, but I think that's just a mundane description of reality, not a prescriptive thing that causes reality to have properties.
No, because we can imagine of immaterial things that do not exist within this reality that could exist. Like I said, the physical laws could be different, and you agree to that, right? That's not a description of our current physical universe. It could be different. They could be different, right? We can imagine of physical laws that could have been different, right?
Sure.
But we cannot imagine a married bachelor that can't exist.
Sure, I can.
It's a logical
I'll just change the definitions of those words.
Okay, yeah, but I'm saying
also, I can say that a guy whose wife is dead is a married bachelor. I can just be pedantic.
Oh, sure, but they wouldn't be married, I guess. But they'd be a widow.
Well, they're eternally married, but he's not married to anybody.
Okay,
so he's a married bachelor in a weird way.
This is a great deflection. I'm appreciating the deflection. Obviously, we could change definitions and stuff, but I'm saying as the definitions stand currently, there could not exist a married bachelor. It's a logical impossibility.
Sure, it's just an analytically true statement. 2 is not 3. Bachelors aren't married. Whatever.
Exactly. So the laws of logic, would you say they could not be different, but our physical laws could be? I
don't think laws of logic are something that exist in a different realm. I think laws of logic are just descriptions of reality. They're conventions and heuristics that we use to describe things around us.
I agree, but what I'm saying is that it's not just a material reality. It also applies if there is an immaterial reality, part of our material reality. If you just put reality as this big umbrella and you have the material and immaterial under this umbrella, the laws of logic would apply to both, right?
No, because how do you like? What do you go by? I don't know how. 3YDURM. I don't know how to say that.
You say Rudy. Call me Rudy.
Rudy. Okay, Rudy. Pretend that the universe doesn't exist. Are there logical truths?
Yeah, I would say the laws of logic precede the material.
Okay, so can you give me a statement using the laws of logic that is true and in a case where the universe doesn't even exist?
Yes, God is all powerful.
Okay, is that in evidence or is that just in what
Yeah,
sense is that true?
So I have an argument to show those that God possesses the three omnis.
Sure. So
I was just
nothing
trying to work out your
exists except, well, the universe doesn't exist, but apparently God
Universe.
exists. Whatever.
Yes.
God is all powerful. That logical
Mhm.
statement. In what sense is that statement true?
By his nature. By his nature, it is true. It just is true by definition. God is existence itself. He has no potentialities, so therefore he consists of all things. Power is one of these things. He consists of all power. If he did not have all power, there would be a potentiality, and that would go against the nature of God. So it's just a logical truth that he is all powerful.
Okay. Let's say the universe doesn't exist, but God exists. And I say God is zip-de-doo-dah.
Yep.
And I say by definition, that's just one of the attributes of God. Is this even a remotely coherent? Like, can we?
I haven't presented my
Can
argument
you
yet.
tell me in what sense that is true or false? Because I think it's just meaningless.
Well, what I'm saying is that, like, if you could define what zip-de-doo-dah would be,
I'll just say that it's a property God has.
but properties themselves, they have definitions.
What's the definition of all powerful?
What? All powerful would be the ability to do all things that are logically possible.
Okay, but the only thing that exists is God. So what kinds of things can God do? If nothing exists and there's no reference
I'm
to
not
any
sure.
action God can take, then
So-
what is it that God can do?
I'm not sure how to exactly answer that. Like, in terms of what he can do, he could do all things, right? I'm not sure how the act like actually takes place. It's hard to think of it outside of time, right? But he could do anything, right?
To me, the problem is if you don't have things to reference, then logical statements are completely meaningless.
So, but they're not. Like, we don't have
Kind of are though. Like
Okay,
if I
so
give you,
look,
if I told
God
you
is-
that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think I got a good one here. So nothing exists. God is omniscient, right? The universe doesn't exist, but the laws of logic are eternal, and so is God. So the universe doesn't exist. God exists. God is omniscient. What is something that God knows in this reality where nothing exists yet?
He knows how he could create a universe that maximizes goods. I don't know.
But then there would have to be a universe concept that God draws upon.
It doesn't mean that the universe physically exists. It could exist within God. I don't know exactly. Like I said, I don't know exactly how his act takes place because he's timeless, right?
Future, what's the thing
Well-
about God can't have a thought unless there is something to predicate that thought?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know how to.
You're talking about like that's a JL argument. You would know how to like predicate that a lot better than I would.
You and I talked about it a really long time ago with what's his name? The Great Beardo.
JL Warren.
No. It was with why can't I remember his name? He's on the Atheist Experience all the time.
Oh, fucking J Mike.
Yeah, J Mike. Yeah. We talked about that with him once, but
Yeah, I'm not
That's,
saying
like that's a J
I know
Mike
exactly
argument. but,
how
Like I can't really remember it off the top of my
okay,
head.
that's fine.
people
Guest,
much
go ahead.
smarter than me. People much smarter than me would be able to answer that. I'm not really fully knowledgeable on how
My-
the act or a thought.
My issue with
would
like
take
your
place.
properties is that they're just fundamentally incoherent, right? Like for instance, like omniscience and omnipotence, just contradict each other? Can like an all-powerful God make himself not remember something or know something?
Yeah, so you have a fundamental misunderstanding of what we consider
Well,
those
you said
properties
anything
to be.
logically possible, right? Can I
Yes.
just, is it logically possible for me to not know something?
It's logically possible for you to not know something. It's not logically possible for God to not know something. Because by
But then he
definition,
can't do
is all.
something that's logically possible, so then he's not omniscient or
No,
omnipotent.
logically, that's a horrible argument. Because by our nature, we
No,
can
it
know.
is.
No, let me finish, okay? This is not surprising coming from the little experiment you ran a little bit earlier, but you by our nature we cannot know things, right? But by definition, God knows all things.
Well,
right?
that's
He has to
not
know
true,
all
though.
things.
You can know things.
It would be what we
You can know things.
There could there
Do you know that
exist?
you exist?
But could we be limited by our nature to where we cannot?
Do you know that
things?
you exist?
Yes,
Can you answer
that's
that
not what I
question?
said. That's not what I said.
Okay,
not what I
but
said.
you know what you did say was
Are you
that we,
listen? Are
by
you
our
like
nature, we
listen? Are you
cannot
listening
know
to me? I'm
something.
confused. Are you actually listening to me when I talk?
I did listen to you. What you directly said,
Yes.
verbatim quote, was that by our nature, we cannot know things. I just
Yes.
proved you false.
No, there are certain things we cannot know.
Okay, so there are some
Okay.
things we can't know.
Yeah, that's obviously what I'm saying.
Sure, that's fair.
Okay. Again, just another deflection. Not by
It's
you,
not.
host, but by
I'm
this
just
guy.
taking what you said, though.
Okay, cool. So we could, by our nature, there could exist some higher level of knowledge that we could not know because we're limited as human beings, right? I mean, that's like the whole argument for aliens and stuff. Like there could exist aliens out there that know more things than us that we could not know. Just like how certain species of animals could not know certain things, but because they're limited by their nature, right?
I mean, his
God,
only
by
point
that-
is it's logically possible to not know things, and
For
God
us,
can do
for
anything
us.
that's not logically possible, which means God can God therefore not know something? Well, that's an omni paradox. That's an omniscience paradox.
Yeah, you're skirting around the heart of that. It is logically possible for us to not know certain things, but because of God's nature, by definition, he knows all things. It's logically impossible that he could not know things.
Then how is he omnipotent?
But he's all powerful, though.
Yeah.
He's all, like, again, fundamental misunderstanding of what all powerful means when we talk about it. He can do all things that are logically possible. It would be logically
But not
impossible.
knowing something is
Hold on.
logically possible. That's
Okay.
the problem.
All right, I'll break it down.
Sure.
So because of our nature, right, there exists a possibility that there are certain things we could not know, right? By our very definition,
Uh-huh.
who we are, right? Our essence, right? God, by definition, that just is who God. That's who God is, right? Just like a square has four sides, right? So by definition, it could not have three sides. It would be logically impossible for it to have three sides. God, by definition, is all-knowing, right? So it would be impossible for him to not know something.
Sure,
see
I
what
can
I'm-
grant you that, but
it's
you're saying he's
logically
also all
possible.
powerful.
Okay, again, fundamental misunderstanding of what we say God.
We're not misunderstanding what all-knowing means.
No, all-powerful you are misunderstanding. I'm not saying all-knowing. I'm saying all-powerful you're
Okay,
misunderstanding.
what's all powerful again? Can you define
Means
that
you
again
can-
for me?
All-powerful means he can do all things that is logically possible. It is logically.
you
Not
not know
knowing
something
something
as
is
logically
logically possible.
Wait, are you guys being serious right now?
Yes.
Okay. Is it logically possible for me to not know something as a human?
Yes.
Could it be the case that God knows the something that I don't know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. So if I were to say God, by definition, knows all things, right? Like a square. Okay, I'm going to break it
Then
down.
there is
A square-
something
a
that is
square has
logically
four-
possible that God cannot do.
Is it logically possible, if we say a square has four sides, is it logically possible for a square to have three sides?
Not unless you change the definition.
Yes, exactly. So no, unless you change the definition. Exactly.
And you're changing
By
the
the nature
definition
of-
of
the nature-
all powerful.
Hold on, give me a second. No, no Christian has ever described all powerful to be anything other than, like, a common argument against Christians is, oh, can God move an immovable stone, right? But that's not what we describe all powerful.
Well,
being.
I think that's a cheap cop out of a
It's
question,
not.
right?
It's thousands
But
of years of philosophy.
no, like that's okay. The you're talking about Avril's paradox of the stone of omnipotence. I agree that's a cheap cop out, right? But what I'm saying is that you are saying
it's the
that
same thing you're saying.
omnipotence. Hold on, you're saying omnipotence can do anything logically possible, right?
Yep.
Okay. If God's omniscient
Mm-hmm.
and God's omnipotent, can God make himself not know something?
No, it's logically impossible.
So then he's not omnipotent.
Okay. Is it logically possible for God to not know something?
If he's all powerful, yeah.
No, hold on. Is it logically possible, by his definition, just as a square is 4 sides, right? By definition, a square is 4 sides. Like you said, we'd have to change the definition. A square is it logically possible for a square to have 3 sides by its nature? No, it's logically impossible. Okay. So we say all knowing, right? We'll say in this analogy, it's equal to the or analogous. The 4 sides is analogous to all knowing, right? And God is analogous to the square. Okay. So if we were to find God to be all knowing, which, like, as we were to define a square to have 4 sides, it would be logically impossible for God to not contain that property, to not have that definition, right?
But not knowing things is a
It's
logical
possible for us,
is
not
a property
for God.
of logical possibilities.
For us, not God.
Well, it's just special pleading.
It's not special pleading.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't count with God.
because the definition of God is such that he could not know he couldn't not know something.
That's the definition of omnipotence.
you can
That's
say
not
it's
the
special pleading,
that's
but I
not
can give
the
you
definition of God. That's the definition
is.
of omnipotence. Omnipotence doesn't allow for I'm sorry. I screwed that up. That's the definition of omniscience. God can't not know something. That's the definition of
Can properties be
omniscience.
within a definition? Can properties be within a definition? Like the property of having 4 sides, is it within the definition of a square? It's a fundamental to the definition of a square, right?
Yeah, but
just
it's
not
not
understanding the
exclusive
paradox,
because
to
a
be
rhombus
honest.
has 4 sides, a trapezoid has 4 sides. I'm not sure.
I didn't ask if it was exclusive. I asked is it fundamental to the nature of a square that it has 4 sides?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So we couldn't just as the 4 sides is fundamental to the definition of a square, to the nature of a square, being all knowing is fundamental to the definition of God. And I can give you an argument to show that God is these things. I haven't gotten to that. Right? I haven't gotten to that. But what I'm saying
I'm
is
just presenting you the omnipotence-omniscience paradox, and you're just not
which is-
understanding it. That's the
no,
issue.
no, it's the same thing as the can you move an immovable stone?
No, it's not. It's
it's
not the
literally-
same thing.
It's the same argument by nature.
It's pitting. I will grant you that these properties can exist. I'm just saying that they can't coexist on one thing.
Because
Yes.
you asked us, is it logically possible for God to not know something? If he's omniscient, no. But then he can't be all powerful. That's the problem.
No, because my definition of all powerful is that he can't do anything that's
is
logically
contradicted by omniscience. You're talking about round triangles.
Wait, what?
Your
No, what I said
definition of omnipotence is contradicted by omniscience.
How? Show me.
Because it's logically possible for God to not know something, so he can't be all
It's not-
powerful and
it's not
omniscient at the
logically
same
possible.
time.
It's just as it's logically impossible for a square to not have 4 sides.
Okay. Let
It's
me
logically
help you out
impossible
with
for
this.
God
okay?
to not.
But you're
have
doing
all
the
powers.
equivalent of
Hold on.
saying, well, if the square is God, then it can
It can what?
have more than 4 sides.
No. I'm
Okay,
saying
let
the
me
exact opposite.
let me help out
I'm
here.
literally saying the
okay?
exact opposite.
Hold on. Let me help you out here. Okay, let's say you like fall off a building and you hit your head. Can you forget your name when you hit your head and you get like brain damage?
Sure.
Right. So it's logically possible for you to not know something after like doing an action
Yes,
to
me.
make you not know something. Correct.
Key word there is you said you.
So hold on.
Human.
Hold on. hold on. It's logically possible, right? Your
For
definition
me, yes.
of God with omnipotence, hold on. Your definition of God with omnipotence is that he can do anything logically possible,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it is logically possible for a God to make himself not know
It's
something.
logically possible for me not to know something, right? For me, by my nature, as a human.
By doing an action for you to not know something.
For me.
Can
me.
God do an
Yes,
action
me.
to him not know something?
Wait, are you being serious? It's me. You said,
Can God do an action? Can God do an action in which he cannot know something?
You're re-asking the question, not understanding what I'm saying. It is logically possible for me as a human to not know something.
Okay, you understand
By
what
my
you're doing
nature.
is your special pleading, right?
No, because I can show through the argument for motion or change that God contains these certain things, right? That he is these things, or else you lead to an infinite regress that is impossible for it to exist, logically impossible for it to exist. Then it wouldn't be.
Well,
special
that's
pleading.
actually not true. Philosophers would disagree with you. That's why there's the three legs of the trilemma.
So what? So give me an example, or what? Okay, what are the two different types of causal chains?
Like, are you talking about like the three legs of the trilemma?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I said that you can't explain, for example, right? If you don't define God a certain way, right? Basically what the argument shows is that it has to terminate at something that is pure actuality or is existence itself.
Okay, the
Right?
universe
Because-
just exists.
No, because the universe
Well,
is
like
contingent.
again, like if you're
No, it
saying like
isn't.
something has to,
It's
That's
not
that's
necessary.
category error.
No, it's not necessary because we can exist. We can because it is logically possible. We can imagine God is the being from
Could God
which
have
no
done
greater-
things other than
Hold
the
on,
things
can I
God
ask-
did?
Can I ask you a question?
After
Or
you
can I
answer
answer-
this question, well, I'm gonna nullify
Okay,
this.
sure. Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna save
ahead.
everybody the time by asking you: could God have done things other than the things God did?
Yeah.
Then he's contingent.
I'm
Okay, so
I'm not sure.
there we go.
What? Wait, what?
God could have been some other way. He's contingent.
No, God, no, because something. No, that's called something in philosophy. It's called a Cambridge change. Just because of something outside of God, it doesn't mean his nature changed. It's something outside of him changed in reference to him. It doesn't mean he changed himself. That's called a Cambridge change.
God could have done things differently other than the way God did things.
Yes. So because things outside of him,
Okay.
right?
So the universe,
like
just
I
because
said-
I can imagine the universe could have been some other way, that's just a Cambridge chain. The universe itself is necessary.
No, because the universe
no.
as it exists itself, right now as it exists, right, it could have been different. It's logically possible for it to have been different.
God could have been different.
No, he couldn't.
God could not have
just
been
agreed
different.
to that.
He can't be different because he is existence.
So God
itself.
could not have done things other than the things God did.
No. What I'm saying is, if it's like if for example, the best analogy I've heard of this is, okay, someone next to me, another person next to me is shorter than me, right? I would say I am taller than that person, right? I'm a certain height. My nature is I am a certain height. I am taller than that person. That person, I caused this person to grow, right? This person is now taller than me and I am shorter. Nothing about my nature changed or my height changed, but in reference to me, there was a change. The person
in reference
changed.
to
But
the
my nature never
universe,
changed.
everything is just a referent to the universe itself, the ultimate thing that exists. It doesn't matter that things could have been differently. Ultimately, it's a reference to reality itself, which is the universe. Therefore,
let me ask you
it's
a question.
necessary and not contingent.
Can I ask you a question? Is it logically possible for there? Okay, just let me finish my question. All right, before you answer this.
Nobody
Is it
interrupted
logically-
you.
No, I'm saying just in case it might go on a little bit longer. Is what I'm saying.
Oh no.
Is it all right? As you guys wasted my time showing the Bluetooth headphones, whatever. So and labeled it as
Still mad about that? Jesus.
Wait, no, you said
It's like 20 minutes ago now.
Oh, come on,
Yeah,
just
you're
get on
acting
with
like
it.
that didn't waste 5 minutes. But all right. So so my question is, could there be a universe that exists, right? So one currently exists right now. Okay. Could there be a universe that exists where it's infinite in both directions in time, right? So it has no beginning and no end. Okay.
That is the universe
Are
we
you-
live in.
Okay, give me a second. Is it logically? See, this is why I said it. You said you weren't going to interrupt me, and then you interrupted me. But okay. This
You asked a question.
I said the question was going to go longer, so I was literally in the middle of the question.
Go ahead.
That was the whole point.
Number
of me
number
saying
one.
that.
Could there be a
That
universe
is
where it's
hilarious.
infinite?
You just made fun of me. You just made fun of me for prefacing that, and then you did exactly what you said you weren't going to do.
What's the second?
hilarious.
What's the second thing?
Okay, so let me finish the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so there could exist a universe that is infinite in time in both directions, right? It's a possibility, right? You could say
No.
that's the universe we exist in now. What?
Oh no, that's not what
Okay,
I
so
thought you meant. No, there isn't an infinite span of time going backwards.
But is it logically possible for that to exist? All philosophers
Probably
ever
not.
would. No, okay. Actually, this is one of the main arguments. Someone like what's his name? William Lane Craig. He makes the cosmological argument. People disprove that argument by arguing, like most philosophers nowadays, I believe in infinite universe.
Eternal universe, yes, not infinite.
Like an infinite in time. I'm saying specifically time. That was the part of the question. That would be an eternal universe.
That's
No.
not what you said. You said an infinite span of time going in both directions, which if we were gonna I could
Yes.
ask that question a different way. Could there be a universe that has an infinite past? No, I don't think so.
So you would disagree
But
with
that's not what an
90%
eternal
philosophers that
universe
believe
is.
that. So you would disagree with 90% of philosophers that do believe that we have an infinite past. There could be an infinite past. Or no, not even that. Not even that.
Who
not even
thinks that?
That's going too far. That's going too far. Is it logically possible for a universe to exist that goes infinitely in the past?
That's what I wrote down. I don't think so.
So can you prove that to me? Using logic, show it violates one of the three laws of logic, that it's impossible for that to exist.
Because it has
Even
no
so?
because it has no
Even
beginning.
so? This, what?
Because it has no beginning.
Okay, show why that's logically impossible for that to exist.
That is how I would show it. I don't know
That's
as
not
many
how-
words as you maybe do, but
I'm not.
I
I'm
don't
not
think
saying-
anybody
I'm not saying
has
no.
any logical problem with what it's like well
No,
never mind.
actually, most philosophers would argue that it could go infinite in the past. That's why that's how they. One of the most popular arguments given by William Lane Craig is the cosmological argument to show that there's beginning, that there is a creation, right? Or in time specifically, right? But philosophers use arguments. I don't know the arguments exactly to show that. So it's literally I'm deferring to the atheist viewpoint when I say that. It's more advantageous for an atheist to say that it goes infinitely in the past.
Do
and
most
that's what
philosophers
atheists-
argue there's an infinite amount of time going backwards? Most philosophers do not agree that time stretches back infinitely into the past, though the question is far from settled. I've never heard anybody, and I don't muck around in these realms very much, but I've never heard anybody say that, oh yeah, infinite past is pretty popular among
No. Okay.
Pilgrims.
Well, I might have been mistaken on that, but it said it's not settled, right? So there's a possibility that could exist.
I don't think that it makes any logical sense because an infinite
Okay,
past has no
you could-
beginning.
It may not make sense to you, but you have to show that it violates one of the three laws. Even so, we can throw out the infinite. We can throw out infinite past. We can throw it out just for the sake of the question. We can throw it out. We'll say yes, you're the arbiter of logic. It doesn't exist, right? Without proving that it couldn't exist. Just because you don't understand it, when you admitted earlier that it's a possibility we could not know certain things, that you could be limited by your nature, right? Let me finish the question then. I'll go with the three other ones, right? Well, not three, two other ones. Okay, so there could exist a universe, right, that in time spans infinitely in one direction, right? So we'll say there is not an
Sure.
infinite past, but there is an infinite future. That universe, it's
Sure.
logically possible for that universe to exist, right?
Sure.
It is logically possible for a universe to exist which is finite in time, right? That time is finite, that it has a beginning and it has an end, right? Would you agree? Logically
I
possible.
think it
I'm not
would.
saying it does exist. I'm saying it's logically possible for it to exist.
Well, if the universe ceases to exist, then nothing exists, and I think nothing existing is logically incoherent, so I'm not sure if I agree with that.
Time, for example. Do you think time? What do you think about time? You already said you don't
I think it's a
time goes
dimension of
infinitely in the
space.
past. Okay, yeah, I don't know the exact physics behind time and stuff, but what I'm saying is when we describe time, right? If we were to look at just a B theory of time, right? Time, like this block universe, it grows in, yeah, okay, we can describe it as a four-dimensional block universe, right? We can imagine a universe that is finite. It's a finite block. It's finite in past and it's finite in future. It's logically possible for that universe to exist, right?
I'll
Okay.
agree with you for the sake of it for now.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So even if I throw out the infinite past, which it's not logically impossible for an infinite, for the universe to go infinitely. That's another thing I don't understand. If it can go infinitely, we're just looking at it as a function of space, right? This four-dimensional block universe. If it can go infinitely in the future, why couldn't it go infinitely in the other direction? If we're just looking at it as a dimension of space. Okay, never mind. Don't answer that. But I'm just showing that it's logically possible for it to go infinitely in the other direction, right? The thing is, one of those universes does exist currently. So there was a potential for the universe it could have been different. Logically, it could have been different. It's possible that it could have been different. But one of these universes does actually exist currently, right? We live in one of these 2, 3, 4 universes, these possibilities I gave you. Agree or disagree? One of these universes actually exists.
So different possible universes could have existed, but one of them definitely does.
Exist,
I can agree with that, but in multiverse, the many universes that exist are still one unified universe.
That's okay. We could say the orientation of the multiverse could have been different. There's logical possibility it could have been different. Right? Like these different
Perhaps.
Universes, universe 1, universe 2, universe 3, they could have been shuffled or different, right? It's logically possible for it to have been different, but even if you do think of a multiverse, if you believe in that, one of those possible multiverses that could have existed does actually exist, right? See how you keep broadening this question, like you just went from universe to multiverse, same issue arrives. This is where I was talking about with the infinite regress.
What's the issue?
The issue is you still don't have the explanation of why. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't say that. You don't have the explanation of why one of these universes does currently exist. What actualized the potential for this universe to currently exist when it could have been different?
The multiverse.
Okay,
all possible universes manifested out of the initial state.
So multiverse, right? But like you said, the multiverse could have possibly been different in its orientation or whatever. What actualized the potential
Not
for
really.
the multiverse? Why? Show me that's logically impossible.
Because if the multiverse posits that all possible universes exist, then saying it could have been different doesn't make any sense because all of the possible universes exist. So no, it couldn't have been different. I could be in a different part of the universe, but they all exist.
Yes, but all the universes that do exist, one could have been over here or over there. Like if we're trying to think of this in like a dimension, right? It's hard to think of it that way, but they could have existed differently in their orientation within a specific dimension.
If it's infinite, if it's infinite, then a recursive infinite number of series of identical universes that are in positions relative to each other. All possible permutation. Yes. No, hold on. Just let me try to say it more simply. If all possible permutations exist, then it means that all possible permutations and their relative orientations also exist. So there'd be a completely identical universe to this one that is just next to a universe that is slightly different.
Okay, but could that universe, if we're looking at it relatively, could that universe, like say that's universe 2 within this infinite set, right? Could universe 2 have been one of those 4 possible universes that I said?
Could universe 2, but I think
could have been different.
I think what I'm always going to say is, yes, it could be different, but in the multiverse, that different one does exist.
Yes, but I'm saying universe 2, when we look at it in the set, like there could exist another universe, right? But what I'm saying is we have one multiverse, right? There's a logical possibility that we have one multiverse where universe 2 is finite in time in both directions, right? And we have multiverse 2, right, where universe 2 is infinite in time in one direction, right? We have these two possibilities of these two different multiverses that could have existed. One of these multiverses does actually exist, where universe 2 in this infinite set does have this certain property when it could have been different. Universe 2 in the set could have been different than what it is.
Perhaps.
Okay, so what actualized the potential for the multiverse to have been a certain way, right? But it is currently a certain way right now. You explain the universe by saying the multiverse. Now, how do you explain the multiverse?
The Big Bang.
Could the Big Bang have? Wait, what? I'm saying what actualized
the Big Bang
yes,
is what causes these bubble universes and the multiverse. That's where our
Okay,
understanding of it comes from.
Okay. Could the Big Bang have been different? Could the universe
In the
could
same way that
multiverse
God could have been different? Sure.
No, give me a second. Don't deflect. Could
I'm
the
not.
could the means by which the multiverse came into existence, right? Which by definition shows it's contingent, but whatever. The means by which the Big
In
Bang.
the same way that God could have chosen different means to reveal his nature to us, yes.
Give me a second. So, the Big Bang, right? The means by which the multiverse came into existence could have been different. Show me.
In the same way that God could
if-
have been different, yes.
Can you just answer my question instead of
I
trying
am
to
answering your
deflect?
question.
Okay, cool. So it could have been different. What explains
If mine's
why?
different, then yours could have been different, then yours is not necessary either.
Okay, this is funny.
Could God have chosen to
reveal?
reveal himself in
Can
a
you be
way other
genuine?
than through his only begotten son?
Can I be? Yes, he could have.
Okay,
But I
well,
love how you're deflecting.
then
Everyone-
God is
everyone in the chat
contingent
definitely
because
sees
God
it.
could have been different.
Can anyone in chat just show that, observe that he just deflected when we're going down
I
this
didn't.
logical path and just yes? Can we just keep going down this path?
I'm happy to let you tell me that if things could have been different, then it's contingent. I'm pointing out that the same problem exists with your God. Your God could have chosen to reveal himself in a way other than through his only begotten son. Therefore, he's
No,
contingent.
you're misunderstanding.
I can
You're
imagine a
misunderstanding.
possible world where Jesus didn't get
Yes,
nailed to
that
a
means
post.
the world is contingent. That doesn't mean God is contingent.
No, yeah,
that means
it
the
absolutely
world
means
could-
God is
that means-
contingent.
No, because like I showed with the Cambridge change, it's not God's nature actually changing. It's our world changing, right? Our world could have been different, right? God could have actualized a different world.
Through his nature, yeah. So God actualizes the world.
What do you mean through his nature? What is that? You just threw that in there without even describing what
It's
that
your
means.
words. Does God
No.
change the world through his nature?
What do you mean? Does he actualize things? Yes.
Okay, well then there's no problem with what I said.
His nature is pure act, but what I'm saying is something external
no
to him
sense.
changing. What?
Which makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. It does make sense.
Action. So what does action mean? To me, action means we have some sort of cause and effect,
Pure act means it's like a sustaining.
which means what?
It's actualizing potentials to. It's actualizing. Sustaining would be like actualizing potentials at all moments. I don't know exactly how to explain it.
So what was the antecedent for God's first action?
I don't know. I already told you I don't know how that works.
Okay,
But-
well,
but
I'll
again,
just say the universe
but
does that
hold on.
too, and I don't know how it works.
Even though I can't. No, because we're going down this. Let's go back to the Big Bang. We were going down a good path here.
Sure.
The Big Bang, the means by which the multiverse was actualized, right? Whatever multiverse does exist, the means by which that came into existence could have been different, right? The Big
What's to stop me from saying the means could not have been different?
by showing it's a logical impossibility that the Big Bang could not have been different.
Say that again.
What?
Say that again.
You would have to show that it's a logical impossibility that the Big Bang could have been different, or the means by which the multiverse came into existence could not have been different.
Okay, so I can't say that the Big Bang is like this because I'd have to demonstrate the logical impossibility that the Big Bang could not have been different. But you admitted earlier that God could have chosen to reveal himself not through his only begotten son.
Hold on. We're about to go down a rabbit hole again. Can you just admit that you can't show that it's logically impossible for the Big Bang, it's logically impossible for the Big Bang to have been different?
I can't tell you that it's logically impossible for the Big Bang to have been different. I don't know how to do that.
Because we can imagine the means by which the multiverse came into existence. We can imagine a scenario where it could have been different, where the multiverse came into existence.
I can imagine that God didn't send his only begotten son to Earth.
Okay, again, you're deflecting. Can we just keep going down this path?
It's not a deflection. I'm just telling you that.
Yes, you are. It was.
I'm just telling you that God has the same problem that you think the Big Bang does.
Again, you're deflecting from our logical path we're going down. Can I just keep going, please?
Sure, go all the way. Tell me when you're done.
Okay. So the there's different possibilities for which the Big Bang could have been, right? What actualized one of those possibilities?
The Big Bang, it's unactualized. There's no antecedent cause.
How could it be unactualized if it
in the same way that your God does?
No, because God, by definition, could not have been different.
The Big Bang, by definition, could not have been different.
Okay, show me that's logically impossible that the Big Bang...
By definition,
right?
That's its nature.
No, because we can imagine... You already admitted, right, that the Big Bang could have been different.
I was being tempted by Satan back then, so I'll just declare by definition that the universe could not have been different.
You can label it. That's funny because you can label the Big Bang, right, as we'll call this thing that could not have been different, that is necessary, right? We'll label it the Big Bang, right? Okay.
Sure.
This means that the Big Bang could not have any potentialities, right? Because if it has potentialities, it means it could have been different.
Yeah, but it couldn't have been.
It couldn't have been, right?
Yeah, by definition.
Yes, by definition. So if it has it has no potentialities, that means it's immutable or unchanging, right? Mm-hmm. That means it has to contain all things. If it does not contain all things, that means it has something that it could have.
Well, that's what the universe, by definition, would be: the set of all things that exist.
Or no, the Big Bang, right? We're talking about the Big Bang here. Big Bang, right?
The Big Bang is just a description of what the universe does.
Okay, this universe, right? Well, let's talk about this universe. That's not the same universe that we live in that we're talking about, right? We're talking about this universe in a sense that actualizes the universe we do live in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this universe, well, let's just keep it with Big Bang so we can separate the two. Or call it something, Universe X, we'll call it. Right? This Universe X, which could not have been different, right? It cannot contain nothing, or cannot contain something, or it's impossible for it to not have something, or it has to contain all things, right? Because if it didn't contain all things, it would imply a potentiality. That means it has all knowledge, it has all power, it has all goodness, right? Because it contains all things.
Those are just mental conceptions.
Okay, but it contains all things, even if they are conceptions. We could say that I have the power to do stuff. I can will certain things to happen, right? This is what we call God. There you go. Universe X is God. This is the Christian God.
No, because it's not magical, personal, or revelatory in any sense.
No, okay, but then I'm not arguing for personal right now. I can come back on another live.
You're doing that more. You just did. I didn't think you were. Wait, were you doing the ontological argument this whole time?
No, that's not the ontological argument. It's
except it is, because what you did was when people give the ontological argument, they say, okay, I can just imagine that the world's greatest pizza exists. And then you're like, well, you're just giving the pizza the attributes of God, so the pizza is God. No, at the end there, though, you said you gave the rebuttal to the rebuttal of the ontological argument. That's why it was kind of weird.
Oh, that you can call it whatever you want, but it's still the same God that I'm talking about.
But at the end of the day, it's got, rose by any other name, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's what I argued for. See how I brought you back through this logical steps to show that a God that is pure existence itself, right? Because the thing is like essence and existence, right? Those are two things. Essence is what something is. Existence is that it is, right? So that it exists, like it currently exists, right? The thing is you cannot explain all these actualizations in this causal chain. It has to terminate at something where its essence or what it is exactly identical to its existence. So it is just pure
Existence isn't a predicate.
What?
Existence is not a predicate.
What does that mean?
It means that existence doesn't tell you anything unique about something existing. This is Immanuel Kant's reply or response to this kind of ontological or whatever argument.
Is what? Say that again. Could you break it down for me?
Let me cheat and use the internet to give you a better, more succinct one. Okay, existence is not a predicate is a famous claim in philosophy. It didn't give me the definition. A predicate is a property or attribute that we say about a subject. In the sentence, the apple is red. The apple is the subject. Red is a predicate. So when we say something is a predicate, we mean it adds to the property to the concept of a thing. Saying existence is not a predicate doesn't add any descriptive content to a concept. That's a very good way of putting it. Saying a unicorn exists does not add a new trait to the concept of a unicorn. It's just a claim that such a thing is instantiated in reality.
Okay, I don't know what that disproves with my argument.
But, well, I would say that if you're going to say that God is the only thing that exists, you haven't told me anything about your God. Or not the only thing that exists, but say it again.
God, what he is just existence.
Yeah, so you haven't described your God in any way.
Well,
it's like saying schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
No, I did describe God, right? Because he is pure existence, he contains certain attributes, like all knowledge, all power, and all goodness, right?
So God's essence is pure existence. Is that accurate or not?
Yes.
Okay. So,
and by the way, if you want to get like a more like, this is an Aristotelian kind of proof, and then St. Thomas Aquinas would be a good. He's the one who came up with this. Essentially, he drew from Aristotle.
Sure. So here, we've been doing this for an hour, so we'll probably have to go. I'll probably have to go after this. But this is what, I'll just read through you what the response is to, if you use this concept of, or this framework of existence is not a predicate, then you can give a rebuttal to the claim that God's essence is pure existence, because it reduces down to God is just pure existence or whatever. Mm-hmm. Existence is a metalogical status. It tells us whether something corresponds to reality, not what kind of thing it is. If you say God's essence is existence, you're treating existence as if it were a property, and you're reifying it, turning it into an abstract logical condition, turning an abstract logical condition into a thing itself. If existence is not a predicate, then it cannot be part of a concept, including the concept of God. Therefore, to say God's essence is existence is either meaningless or confused.
Okay, yeah. So that's a Kant argument?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. I'm sure there's a lot of ways to rebut that. I don't think Kant's super well respected in the philosophy of religion, so I'll have to look into that. But yeah, so I'll just have to look into that rebuttal. I don't really know what Kant is arguing there, but yeah, I'll just have to look into it.
Well, to me, somebody who's very stupid with these things, it's almost like
I'm not acting like I'm smart either. I hope you know. Like, I'm just going based off what I've learned. Like, I'm
well, that's what we
fundamental.
All
do. It goes way deeper than what I'm saying. So,
yeah, to me, to me, it's kind of like saying it's just a tautological statement. I could just say blip blop is blip blop, or by definition, zippity doo dah has to exist. It's like, why should I believe that? Because I'm telling you that it has to. It's like, okay, but if we were ever to try to help somebody understand something, that it exists, why you should believe it exists, what its properties or whatever are, then these things, we do that by using predicates, right? Like a purple zebra or whatever.
Yep.
But when you just say that something just exists, that's not a predicate, so you haven't given anybody any reason or justification for why that thing in particular exists. I can even agree that it's logically impossible for nothing to exist, but then therefore that means the thing that has to exist is God. I just don't think is found. It certainly isn't found in that particular argument.
I would completely agree with you. That's not helpful if I was making the ontological argument. I'm not. I was making the argument for motion or change, and we followed that logical steps all the way back to it has to terminate at something that could not have any potentials. Because it could not have any potentials, its essence or what it is has to be pure existence. It's pure act, so it just is. So that was the whole point of the argument for motion. It wasn't an ontological argument.
Sure.
So I would say there was justification there. We did take steps. I did show why. You didn't ask about why this infinite regressive causal chain couldn't exist or why it's logically impossible, but we walked through that logical step. That's the whole point of the argument, to show that it has to terminate at something that has no potentialities. If it doesn't have potentialities, that means its essence has to be equal to its existence. It has to be just has to be existence itself.
Yeah. I mean, another problem I have is I don't have a problem with infinite regress, and God doesn't get rid of infinite regresses.
I do have a problem. It's logically impossible for an infinite regress of hierarchical causal chains to exist.
Why is that?
I could give a paradox. So essentially, it's called the paper pass paradox, and I won't keep you on too much longer. After this, I don't know how long you want to
Covered
keep
in
going,
cat
but
hair. Go ahead.
It's called the paper passer paradox. So essentially, you have these. Well, and by the way, a hierarchical causal chain is like, for example, there's two different types of causal chain. This is important before I talk about this. Temporal causal chain is like you were dependent on your parents at one moment in time for you to exist, right?
Sure.
You're no longer dependent on your parents in this moment of time for you to exist, right? That's temporal. So there could be an infinite regress of temporal causal chains to explain things, because the one at t equals 1 is not dependent, or t equals 2 is not dependent on something at t equals 1, like you and your parents, right? But a hierarchical causal chain is that something is dependent on something else at every moment in time, right? So like, for a good analogy, like the most very trivial analogy would be like a train of boxcars, right? If you're looking at a train of boxcars moving on tracks, right? How do you explain the motion of one train car? You say, you don't explain it by saying, it's being pulled by the train car in front of it, right?
Right.
And then, what's pulling that train car? They're being pulled by a locomotive. So the trains, what's actualizing the potential for the train's motion is the locomotive at every moment in time. So that would be a hierarchical causal chain. So the argument for motion basically says that a hierarchical causal chain, so like why we exist at every moment in time, what is actualizing that potential for our existence at every moment in time, right? You can't explain that by an infinite regress. It's just like saying, like, you don't explain, I think the famous one from Aquinas is a stick moving a stone. You don't explain the motion of the stone with an infinitely long stick, right? There has to be a hand moving.
Right.
The
It
stick,
just kicks the can down the road of, well, what caused that to move, and then what caused that to move,
Yeah,
and then what
yeah.
caused that to move.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it's derivative power. So a good paradox, it's called the paper passer paradox. So essentially you have these row of paper passers at every moment in time from like, say, we'll go by years. So like at 2025, we have a specific paper passer. 2024, there's another paper passer. Okay. So the paradox goes that paper passer, if from each year to the next, the previous paper passer passes a piece of paper onto the next paper passer, and they have to look at the piece of paper, and if there's not anything written down, then they have to write down their year and then pass it on to the next person, right? So the question becomes, what number is written down on that piece of paper? With an infinite regress, it becomes that no specific number can be written down on that piece of paper, yet a specific number has to be written down on that piece of paper. So that would be a logical contradiction. So it cannot exist. You can't, so a hierarchical causal chain versus if we were to say it terminates at t equals 0, right? This causal chain does. It's a finite hierarchical causal chain. That logical contradiction no longer exists. So what is causing that logical contradiction is the hierarchical causal chain, is the infinite regress itself. Therefore, an infinite regress of hierarchical causal chains cannot exist.
Sure. What if I said to you,
So,
what if I asked you, where does a circle begin?
I don't know. I couldn't pinpoint it.
I don't think a circle begins anywhere, right? It's like saying, where is the end of the Earth? Well, the Earth is a sphere. So the Earth is finite. A circle is finite, but it has no real beginning, and you can traverse the surface of the Earth literally forever. So to me, maybe one of two things. Maybe time is cyclical, and so it would be kind of infinite, but at the same time, not really. Or time as we understand it just wasn't a thing in the beginning of the universe, because time as we understand it is like a dimension of space. And if the universe is crammed into a quantum, like a pure quantum state, it doesn't experience time. And so we're going to run there.
We're going to run into the same problem, right? We can imagine a universe that's not circular in time for it to exist, right? Yet, even if this circular universe in time does exist, what actualized that potential for this universe to exist currently at every moment in time? What is sustaining that existence? Right? So you still run into that same problem with the infinite regress. And that's why it's not like time I'm arguing for this. I'm arguing for hierarchical causal chains within the framework. Well, no, you can't explain a hierarchical causal chain with an infinite regress. That's logically impossible. So what I'm saying is that we have potentials, right? Potentials are actualized. We observe that in our everyday life. Even if you argue for the B theory of time, that's why I brought up the 4 different universes, because one of those universes could have existed, yet one does. So something had to actualize that potential for this current universe to exist at every moment in time. Or every moment, not even time, but at every moment. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
So
my brain is melted.
Sorry. Essentially, like I said, what I ran you through, right? Even if you say time is circular, right, or cyclical, right, we can imagine a universe where time is not cyclical. There's a possibility for that universe to exist, logically, right?
I mean, so I'm not going to give counter arguments because we've been going at it for over an hour.
Okay, yeah, but essentially you still run into the same problem. It still terminates to something that is pure actuality, that has no potentials. And that brings along certain characteristics of that thing.
Rip.
So, all right. Yeah, I'll let you go.
Sounds good.
And someone said you can imagine anything, but you can't imagine a logical impossibility. So that's the whole point. But all right. Sorry about that for wasting so much time and maybe losing you some viewers, but I think we had a pretty good high level discussion about that. So
no problem.
All right, have a good one.
The birds and the bees. All right, everybody. It is 1:30 p.m. and I have not eaten anything yet today, so okay, bye. All right, YouTube, now that the TikTok crowd is gone, now the real live stream starts. No, just kidding. I'm going to leave. But I will monitor chat for a minute to see if there are any questions. Oh, look, we have an infinite regress of my office. That means that God can't exist. I'm pretty sure that's what that means. The real stream. You got cooked, so now you can eat. Yeah, I'm going to indulge in some auto cannibalism. Enjoy the best possible pizza. I'm going to eat God. Don't eat your cat by mistake. I would never do that. I just had a chicken wrap. Based. I had a McChicken yesterday, so can't eat that today. All right, well, enjoy your military parade, America. The rest of you, I don't know, just buy gold and take cover for the immediate future, maybe.